I made a incredible discovery the other day. I was listening to one of my other podcasts because I do that. I listen to other podcasts besides just ours. And one of the people on the shake weight came up. Do you remember the shake weight?
Yes.
Like those ridiculous commercials where and anyways. And so then they were like, yeah, do you know you can delete your messages on your iPhone like that? And they were like, they expanded on it. And so I tried it out. I typed a bunch of gibberish in a text message to you, and then I just shook my phone like a baby rattle.
Shake it like a Polaroid picture.
And
shake it like
we're
a
trying to get the
Polaroid
younger crowd here. They
picture.
don't know what that is.
That sounds not that old. Maybe like 20 years, but.
Anyways, and it comes up and said, hey, you want to delete all this? And so it's like if you're sitting there rage texting at somebody, you're just spilling your guts to them, and you're like,
You sure about that?
You sure about that? You can get rid of it real easy, and it just changed the way, it changed my life. Really,
I haven't tried it yet.
it's pretty miraculous. So, hey everybody, welcome to We Watch TV, the podcast about TV that we watch. I am Daniel, as always, and joined as always by Hope.
Hey.
And we're kind of recording this episode in advance. We're going to be out of town here for a little while, so wanted to make sure you guys still had a podcast to listen to.
You're actually coming with me on a trip this time.
Yeah, I am joining you for the first time in a while.
Since like November.
So if any of you were tuning in hoping to hear our thoughts on the finale of Ted Lasso, that will be next week. We probably have already seen it by the time you've listened to this, but we just haven't had a chance to record it yet. So it
you'll
is
have
coming.
a chance to get caught up on Ted Lasso too.
Kaylin.
Before you. It's not her fault.
Okay.
Before you get to that episode, get caught up on the series. And then we'll also be doing, we mentioned our supercuts in the previous episode. We'll eventually have a supercut special for Ted Lasso sometime later.
I think the next one we're going to publish is The Mandalorian.
Yes, The Mandalorian.
And then, Maisel will be after
The
that.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
We're trying to do them in order that we finished them.
Yes.
So, yeah. What else is going on this week? Before we get into what we actually want to talk about this episode is very relevant in a sense of I ruined something for you, and every one of the episodes that we watched for this episode of the podcast included this ruining thing. And
yes.
I just want to know, how badly have I think we talked about it on the podcast.
We have talked about it before on the podcast. So basically, anytime that you are not on a reality show where you're wearing mics because it doesn't matter because you're in a reality show, pretty much anything that's outdoors, not on like a soundstage, just like they're filming outside. So let's say you're actually filming. I need to go back and look at some of the Sex and the City scenes to see if they do this.
Oh,
because
they did.
Often film outside. But any like outdoor shot, especially like crowded places, and I guess it should have made sense to me before, Daniel pointed out how it's dubbed. Now, certain shows, it gets super obvious to me. Other shows, I think newer shows, it's a little less obvious that they're doing that. But dubbing is where you still have the actors saying the lines in the scene, but then they go into a recording studio and they re-record those lines and then they dub them over. Did I explain that correct for all the tech nerds out there?
The actor redoes the lines in the studio.
And some of the episodes, and now it's so obvious to me. And it's not just this theme episode that we're doing. It's any show I've pretty much seen that's filmed outside. I really do need to go back and watch some of the Sex and the City ones to see if that happens as well.
Guarantee it, especially filming on location in New York.
Yeah, that would have to be loud. But yeah, you kind of ruined it for me because now every time I see it, I notice it, and once you notice it, you cannot unnotice it. So thanks for that.
Well, it's interesting. Some of the filming techniques they go around to try and get away from it is like far shots, right? Like long shots where you're not close enough to the actor, and particularly in the 90s when the resolution that they were working for was much lower than what we're used to now. So it was less noticeable. So
like some of the shows that we watched, they'll have like the characters off in the distance by like an attraction or something, because we're going to talk about attractions, not attractive people, but attractions, rides. I bet everybody can see where I'm going with this, or you probably already know because of the episode description in the title, but I digress.
You're expecting our listeners to read.
I guess so. But they'll have that faraway shot and kind of those overlay sounds, so they're not as close to them, so it's not less noticeable. But some of them, I mean, they're zoomed right into the conversation. And I do think some of the more modern shows, it's less noticeable. But now that I know, it's like something that once you know, you can't unsee.
Yep.
And I always thought it was only certain shows that did that. I know I'm a big One Tree Hill fan, and a lot of their River Court scenes I remember watching. I think it was like on the DVD extras, or maybe it's the Drama Queens podcast that I've listened to where they talk about where they would go in and dub for outdoor shots. So I kind of knew they did that, but I didn't realize that like pretty much every show. Like we were watching, I think it was again Modern Family, still in my Modern Family kick by the way. We were watching just a regular episode, and they were outside filming, and I turned to you and I said, "Oh my gosh, they're doing it here too."
Yeah.
Because they're outside.
And it's like, it's stuff that you wouldn't even really think about. Like the line is the exact same. And so, but if they just do the inflection a different way, if you're watching their lips, you could just tell
But if you
that
are,
it's off.
you've had me to the point where I'm like really like inspecting their mouths and the movements, and it just doesn't fit. Oh, it wasn't Modern Family actually. It was the Everybody Loves Raymond episode where they go to Italy.
Yeah.
Because they
That one
actually
was bad.
filmed at Italy. That was definitely bad. Those scenes when they were actually out, like exploring Italy and everything. Like it was definitely noticeable. And that's when I had you come into the room. I think I ended up like passing out on the couch like my dad halfway watching through a show. Because apparently, if I start a show, after 10 p.m., I can no longer stay up to finish it.
That's
That's
correct.
a whole other reason. Whole other issues. But I'm like, hey, they were dubbing in Raymond too. And then I'm like, is this just like a thing for all outdoor shows?
Mhm.
So now maybe you guys can go pay attention, and maybe we've forever ruined that for you.
Or don't do it.
But you know what's not ruined?
What's that?
My love of the Disney themed episodes.
I'm
And
aware.
that's what we're going to talk about today, because if you guys know Daniel and I personally, we are Walt Disney World annual pass holders. We do love going to the parks, and one of the things that I like to watch before my trips is I'll often watch the Disney themed episodes. It takes me, especially like the TGIF ones that were kind of the blueprint for this, like the Full House episode. It was the first one. It takes me back to my childhood. It gets me excited, and you've seen a few of them with me before, and when you were a kid. Correct. That is correct.
That's what I've been told.
And yes, you have seen them. You've seen the middle episode multiple times. I know you've seen the TGIF ones. You just haven't watched them as frequently as me until this weekend.
And I found out why.
I love them. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. Daniel's just such a negative Nelly over here.
By the way, watching old TV shows with you is a real trip sometimes.
Why?
I made notes on all the shows we watched, but I also just made out some regular notes about how what watching TV with Hope is like.
Gosh.
Let me take you on a ride, everybody. So the first note I made is Hope pointing out all the actors that are now dead.
When
He's
did
dead.
I do that?
She's dead. Those people are dead. Like just
Oh, like
multiple
Grandma
times.
Winslow.
Yeah. Like multiple
was like, she's
times.
not alive
You're just
anymore.
like, those people are dead now. And it's like, thank you. Thank you for that.
I don't remember. I don't do that for every show.
Not every show. But
I
you
feel like
just
I
sure did.
only did that for Grandma Winslow.
Okay. Then you cannot deny the next one.
No, I didn't, because Myra, that actress, may she rest in peace.
There you go.
You're making this bright, beaming, wonderful world of Disney episode really dark by that note.
Okay, I'm going to lighten it up. You can't deny this. Pointing out all of the attractions that are now gone.
See, attractions. Yes, of course. I do that. I'm like the Leo meme. I'm like, oh, that's not there anymore. That's in a different spot. It's just like what I like to do. It's like watching these episodes is like going back in time to when I would visit the parks as a child.
That's a little.
What else do I do?
Insight into. I mean, it's mostly just like, oh, that's different, or that's gone, or.
See, I thought you were going to call me out on just our general TV watching where I see an actor that looks, similar to something else I've seen.
Ooh.
I'm like, oh, I cannot
What's he been in?
concentrate
What's
until
he
I
been
see
in?
what this person's been in.
Pause.
Up
Look him
to
up. Got to
IMDb.
look him up. What's he been in?
Or I know what they're in, and I tell everybody I'm watching. I'm like, yeah, so and so. He was in like Dodgeball, all that. We had that conversation the other night. You were insistent that this guy that was an extra on Modern Family was in Dodgeball, and I'm like, no, that's not what he was in. I still need to look up.
Was
that
I
guy, by the way.
insistent, or did I say he might have been in Dodgeball?
No, you said, oh, that's the guy from Dodgeball. I said, no. The guy from Dodgeball played the girl's dad in the show Upload on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And then I was correct.
Well, anyways, I was tasked with watching all of these various Disney-related
You
episodes,
weren't tasked. You were given the gift of joy.
and then giving them a rating.
Yes, a grade.
A grade, yes.
So what we did was I actually ranked them and then also gave a grade because we're just gonna.
But I hate ranking things.
Yeah.
So.
But you have no hesitation giving out Fs. I think as we're gonna find out. So we're gonna go down through my list
I
now.
only gave out one F.
Okay, I thought you gave up more than one F.
A lot of D's.
I gave no Fs.
Oh,
Dad joke for the day.
Which one are we starting with?
First off, I'm gonna talk about two of them that we did not watch and not make the list. We didn't rewatch the Roseanne one. I'm not a big Roseanne fan, honestly. That show's always kind of gotten on my nerves. Sorry. I have seen the Disney episode. It was funny. I like the part where I remember Dan like going off to search for beer in Epcot. I thought that was humorous, but we didn't include that one on the list and do a rewatch because I feel like that show kind of gets on your nerves too, right?
I
Roseanne.
honestly have maybe seen 3 episodes of Roseanne.
I know you've
in my
watched the
life.
Disney Roseanne episode with me because I made you watch it like 5 years ago.
Okay, well, I'm very good about packing things away and
I
just
guess
not
so.
remembering them.
Another conversation for your therapist.
Yeah.
And then we also did not include the Blackish Disney episode on our list. We've watched Blackish like only for that episode. I know you've seen it before.
Yeah, I remember.
Is it like Lawrence
That's
Fishburne?
Lawrence Fishburne,
Okay,
yeah.
he plays like the grandpa.
Morpheus.
But because we haven't really consistently watched that show, because even though you might have fugue stated some of these other shows, you did watch them in your childhood growing up.
I remember the Blackish episode. Morpheus is in it.
Yes.
For those of you who enjoy fine film,
I hate the
Lawrence
Matrix.
Fishburne
Blech.
from The Matrix, who played Morpheus, a fine film.
Not a great
You
film.
are absolutely wrong in your opinion
I'm
on The
not
Matrix.
wrong.
Sorry. Had to get that off my chest.
It was not okay. It was boring. But they already know that. We've already talked about that before. But that was a really fun episode because I like how they discover because the grandparents are like, what's the big deal about Disney? So what if we're having the time of our lives, like while they're riding
Yeah.
Soarin', and they get like engrossed in the magic. But since we don't consistently watch that show and don't know much about the plot and the characters as a whole, we did not include it in the list. So there are 7 shows that we watched, and I went ahead and ranked them. And I think for the most part, you would agree with my rankings. I know you're definitely the last place show that you would have ranked is not my last place show, but I think as a whole, consistently, you're going to agree with my rankings. So in the 7th slot, we have Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the original one with Melissa Joan Hart. And this episode was entitled Disney World. Very creative. And it aired on April 24th, 1998. And the plot summary for this episode is
off the rails.
Her class goes to Disney's Animal Kingdom where Sabrina turns Libby and Valerie into zebras. That's the description from IMDb. I don't know if that's the official
That's not even
synopsis.
the weirdest thing that happens in that episode.
Like where they find the caveman?
No, they find a caveman bone and reanimate him.
The ants do that.
And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I will say, what kept this episode... Can I give my rating for the episode?
You can go ahead and give your rating for the episode.
D.
I gave it a D too.
What kept this episode from an F was the actor that played the caveman really sold the caveman. He was giving nothing to work with.
This one is the only one that takes place at Animal Kingdom, and I think that Disney chose to do this episode at Danimal Kingdom. I can't talk.
The Danimal Kingdom.
At Animal Kingdom, Disney's Animal Kingdom, because Animal Kingdom had just opened around that time. They stayed at Coronado Springs Resort, where we have stayed before.
Yep.
Fun fact, we've stayed there twice.
Even though they weren't in the rooms.
Because it was an obvious set.
Yeah.
And it aired, I think I already said it aired on April 24th, 1998. And
Ouch.
they didn't do any other parks, just Animal Kingdom. So Sabrina has to go down there. Like, she basically uses her little witch magic to trick the school into taking a trip down there. And she's working. It's when they had the quiz master that she was like working on her like witch's license
You're trying
or
to
something.
explain this to me as if I remember any of the plot of the Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Well, I'm trying
from
to explain
the
to
90s.
our listeners that might have not remembered the plot of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But she had to work with a quizmaster guy so she could like get her like become like an official witch. And she had to go find. They kept calling it. Is Orlando tropical? Because you had
subtropical. Thank you.
Okay, so that
Not
was a
tropical,
mistake.
subtropical.
But I do like it.
Geographic
They show the
error on their
safari.
part.
They give Aunt Hilda to get Harvey away from Libby, who was like the mean girl that was always going after Sabrina's boo. She like puts a little spell on Harvey that he goes to work on the safari, the Kilimanjaro safari ride. So he's like in a little safari outfit. And that description on IMDb is correct. Valerie, Sabrina's friend, and Libby are turned into zebras accidentally. Salem is a stowaway. I can't believe that so you said this
Salem
episode,
is a cat, by the way.
Yeah, Salem the cat. I can't believe that you said the caveman saved this episode for you because you were like, wow, Sabrina's aunt is hot. Aunt Zelda.
Okay, maybe that saved the episode for
Beth
me, too.
Broderick. You know, she plays a grandma now in Hallmark movies.
No.
But back then...
She was probably about my age back then when she filmed that episode.
Most likely.
Maybe a little older.
I think we were older than Hilda at the time, the other aunt. Sorry, we say aunt in our Appalachia. Like, if people are like expecting me to say aunt, it's not going to happen. But I also gave it a D because the plot was me.
It was poor television.
But I do like it that they went to Animal Kingdom because Animal Kingdom didn't exist when most of these other episodes took place.
Why didn't they stay at the Animal Kingdom Lodge?
It might have not been built yet. I don't know. You might want to look that up.
Because Everest wasn't there yet either.
Everest wasn't open until 2006.
Yeah.
Which seems to me like it was just a few years ago, but I guess it's not.
It is not.
Because when we first went to, fun fact, ladies and gentlemen, my first trip to Animal Kingdom, even though I've been going to Disney since I was a child, and it had been open on previous trips, we would always kind of go down for like a long weekend or like attach it to like a beach trip or something with my family. And my first visit to Animal Kingdom was with you. We were not engaged yet. You were just my boyfriend, and you came with my family.
I was just freeloading.
Just freeloading. And that was the first time we went, and we saw Everest being built, but it wasn't open yet. That was in 2005. Just a couple college kids. That was when we would still run every day on vacation. Not just for like run Disney trips because we were training for cross country. Ugh. So we would get up in the morning. We stayed at Pop Century. And we would get up every morning, like before my parents would get up, and we would do our runs. But then we would roll into the parks later, though.
I do want to, for everybody out there, just remind you that this was more of a hostage situation for me.
A hostage?
Because
I made you train even though you had a scholarship. Well, I guess you weren't on scholarship for cross country. But still, that helped your track scholarship.
Yeah.
That's part of our deal. Yeah, I feel like you said you never ran on vacation until you met me. I ran on vacation.
It's called a vacation.
But we were in training. Shall we move on to the next episode?
Sure, let's.
In my 6th place, I can't believe I'm putting this episode in the 6th slot, but I'm going with Boy Meets World. It is The Happiest Show on Earth was the episode title, and it aired on May 10th, 1996. And the episode description for that is, while Corey and Topanga have been apart for 3 months, because they were broken up at the start of this episode, so sad, Corey has been dating as many girls as he can. When he calls one of them Topanga, he realizes how much he really cares. Oh, how sweet. However, his plans to woo Topanga are interrupted when she wins an essay contest in class, which sends her to Disney World for a week. Corey, with the help of Sean and Eric, flies to Florida in an attempt to win Topanga back. Now, they're flying. They end up, hitching a ride on, a cargo plane of, Sean's uncle. Eric builds, a fake doll of Corey to try to trick all these dumb adults. Mr. Feeney's the only one that even seems sus about it because he's, the only smart person on that show. I love Boy Meets World. I think it still holds up. But as a Disney person, when I went back and rewatched this, the fact that they land and they just go and they bring their bags into Epcot fine, but then their bags disappear. And then this episode, if I'm Disney World, I'm like, wow, you made our security system look really bad because they end up sleeping in the logs on the now defunct Splash Mountain ride, which is still kind of there, but not there because it's being rethemed.
And you could not sleep comfortably in those log flumes.
No way. And then they're like, oh, well, I guess it's a morning shower. Now, it does have an iconic scene in it, which those fountains, that's gone. But where Corey and Topanga get back together, and I used to always scream at you, even in the middle of our first Disney half marathon that we did together, I was like, oh, Corey and Topanga, even though I'm, so ready to throw up at that point because it was close to the end of the race. I always had to point it out. So I loved that scene. Still one of my favorite scenes to this day, but just the logistics of how, they got around the parks, how much money did they have? I don't know. It wasn't the best Disney episode.
Do you know what I find the most unrealistic thing about this episode?
What?
The fact that Corey Matthews was able to get dates with all those girls.
Well, I mean, he was friends with Sean. Sean Hunter was one of my first crushes as a child.
Is that all it takes? Being friends with somebody who's attractive?
Possibly. And
I just needed more attractive friends in high school then.
I guess.
Okay.
Sorry for the friends
also,
of yours that listen to this.
Second note, that was my first note on this episode. And the second note I had was, is Corey's mom hot?
Yeah, because right when that scene, when they got back and the parents are in the kitchen,
Yeah.
I'm like, Corey's dad was kind of cute. And then you're like, his mom's hot. So that's us now.
She's probably our age.
Checking out the parents.
So I gave this one a D. It was not good television at all.
It did have a bit of a crossover with Step by Step, who was their Disney episode.
Yeah, but when
the
you
same
look
time.
at the Step by Step episode, which we'll get to in a minute, you're like, when did that happen?
Yeah, when did Dana have time?
That's-
It was
there's-
only Dana
There's
Foster.
It just doesn't make any sense.
She's the only character. She went over to the living seas. Do you like the way the seas are themed now for Nemo, or do you like that classic 90s way? You probably don't remember.
I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion.
One of my
one way or the
old
other. It's all fish.
coworkers,
It's just fish.
my former coworker from a previous job, she was actually there and showed me pictures once because she saw Corey and Sean, what are the Ryder Strong and what's his name? The Wonder Years brother. What is his name?
Savage.
Ben Savage. Thank you for that. I can't believe you knew that more than I did.
Me neither.
Wow. She saw them filming, and I think they filmed it like in February or something. So that's another thing that these Disney episodes, because they always air towards the season finales, are very close, which, as we know, is like boiling hot in Walt Disney World. But a lot of times they're wearing like long sleeves, and now you know why, because they filmed them early.
Breaking the magic for everybody.
Another filming trick. I actually gave this episode a C because it still has that iconic Corey Topanga moment at the end. But just the logistics of like how they got around the parks, it was silly, which probably as a child watching it, I thought it was hysterical. But yeah, a C for me. Did you have any other notes on the Boy Meets World episode?
I did not. Those were the two.
And I said that it was called the happiest show on earth, right? I think I did.
Ugh.
I have so many notes here. Okay, you ready for the fifth slot?
Sure. Give it
My
to me.
fifth slot is probably what your last place slot would have been, and that is Family Matters.
Oh
and
my.
this episode is a two-parter, and it's called We're Going to Disney World, and it aired on April 28th, 1995, and May 5th, 1995.
What streaming service did we watch this on?
We watched this on... I don't remember.
Okay.
It looked bad, though. It was not Hulu.
It looked real bad.
Or maybe it was. I don't think it was Hulu.
I don't know what it was on. It looked bad. All the rest of them didn't look this bad. And I'm not going to put it all on Family Matters for looking this bad, because a lot of that has to do with the care that's been taken by the rights holders to update these old shows and bring them into the modern age. If there's a better version of Family Matters out there, it deserves it, because this, it looked
Did we
grainy
watch it
and
on
bad.
Prime? Did I buy these
You
episodes?
did not buy them. I wouldn't have let you do that.
There's a good chance I might have. But I do think you can watch Family Matters on HBO Max or Max, whatever they're calling it now. But the part one summary is Urkel wins a trip to Disney World where he and the Winslows demonstrate his transformation chamber. There, the nerd changes into... I'm trying. Hey, I took these notes. There, the nerd changes into Stefan and proposes to Laura. Eddie decides to go later and gets Waldo to take him, if only he can read a map. And then the part two summary is Eddie and Waldo run into a number of silly situations as they get lost on their way to Orlando. Meanwhile, Carl weighs a job offer in Orlando, which is not true, by the way, because he said he was thinking about moving to Orlando in the episode.
That wasn't a
he
job
was never
offer.
offered a job. And Myra arrives to stop Stefan from proposing to Laura. So, yeah, that's a two-parter. And I think I already said when it aired.
The fact that it was a two-parter weighed into my rating.
I mean, you had to wait a week between episodes to find out what happens. Essentially, if anybody's familiar with the great show of Family Matters, which I feel like I loved TGIF as a kid, but when I look back, Family Matters is probably the one that holds up the least for me as well. It's very silly, but as a kid, we thought Urkel was hilarious. Like, did I do that?
The machine that he created
Got any cheese?
to turn himself into Stefan
The porta potty?
is a porta potty.
He changes the DNA. He changes from Steve Urkel to Stefan Urkel.
You know, I didn't make a ton of notes about this episode because it was bad.
But did you know that? Okay, so in the
F.
last
F.
season of
The note
season
I
of
will-
Family Matters, this is relevant to the porta potty thing. The last season of Family Matters,
Oh boy.
I don't know how he does it, but somehow Steve and Stefan are able to like coexist. He basically like because it was always the DNA was changed. Like what was there when he got into the transformation chamber, because there's other episodes where he transformations or transforms into Bruce Lee, into Elvis. Do you not remember any of these Family Matter episodes? But he's somehow able to make it so that he and Stefan coexist at the same time, because they fight for Laura in the last season and she ends up choosing Steve, not Stefan, and actually gets engaged to him. But,
I mean, once you've got the DNA swapping part down,
Yeah.
everything else is cake. So yeah, I'm sure I believe he could clone himself.
So you're giving it an F.
F. The only thing I have a bunch of I have a few different notes, like why was it 2 parts? Why? It looks terrible. And then I made a note called Leather Jacket Man.
Oh, at the
And I think that was because in the contest they were having, they had
which
people
they had
in the
at
crowd.
Epcot.
And like there was a guy there with like long hair and a leather jacket. I'm like, why is he at a science contest?
They were at the old Innovations, which is not
Yeah.
there anymore, as I pointed out. I always thought, like, when I was little
F.
and I watched this,
If I could have given it a G, I would have.
when I was little and I watched this episode, I was always like, shocked at the reveal that the reason why. So basically, okay, we got to go back to the
No,
beginning.
don't.
Steve is demonstrating how it works. He has Laura on stage to help him because he's basically paying for the Winslow's trip, and it breaks. Something goes kaflooey. So they have to delay the results of the contest so he can change back. And so Stefan can change back into Steve Urkel. Or Steve Urkel, because it's Stefan Urkel. He even changes the last name up. This show's unhinged. And so he ends up Stefan gets to spend the week enjoying Disney World. And I was always like, well, what an accident. What an unfortunate accident. And then color me shocked when it's revealed that like Laura was the one that like, dismantled it. And then we were watching it. She just obviously rips off the part, as you pointed out to me.
Yeah, like it was clear and plain.
It's like the whole section is off of the transformation chamber, or as we call it, a porta potty.
If Gen Z is listening, or younger generations, or in posterity, if this podcast lives on and somebody is coming back, this is why millennials are screwed up. TV like this that we
I
watched.
do that?
TV
But
like
I
this that
can't
we were
believe
subjugated to.
That you are giving it an F, though, for the sheer purpose that they do stay at our favorite Walt Disney World hotel, the Wilderness Lodge.
Even that couldn't save it.
Growing up,
Not
and
to
I
mention
watched
how low resolution it was. I could barely tell they were there.
growing up watching these shows, I always thought, because we were like more of like a Pop Century kind of family at the beginning, which is nothing wrong with Pop Century, but I always thought
I was a camper at the beach kind of family.
I always thought someday I want to stay at one of the big hotels like I've seen on the TGIF shows. I still haven't made the Grand Floridian happen yet because that's really expensive. But when we finally like had our first stay at Wilderness Lodge, I was like, and I know I had stayed at Coronado, but I'm talking about like
I made it.
these
I
ones.
finally made it
know.
to the Family Matters
to the
level.
TGIF era. Woohoo! I did not give it an F. I gave it a C. It gets a C rating because of the Wilderness Lodge, and I do really like how they show a lot of. It was basically a big commercial for Disney.
Got teacher's pet over here.
How is that a teacher's pet?
The Wilderness Lodge gets it a C.
How is that? How am I the teacher's pet?
No, the show is the teacher's pet. It's a bad
You're
analogy.
weird. That's
It's a bad analogy.
Really bad analogy. But I like how they show the different attractions and Carl's mood when he's at Disney. Mr. Carl Winslow, who also played a cop in a movie that we like to call. Why is that movie like?
Die Hard.
Die Hard. There we go. He also played a cop in that. And he was in a Hallmark Christmas movie that we watched this past fall with the Ghosts of Christmas Present or something. Remember, I was like, oh, Carl Winslow. He didn't play a cop in that.
I think I gave that a higher grade than I gave this.
He was an angel in that one. You liked that one. That was one of your
He
favorites.
wasn't an angel. He was the ghost of Christmas.
Oh, I guess they were ghosts, not angels. I don't know.
Present or past. I don't remember which one he was. But he wasn't an angel.
I thought they were like angels. I guess they were like ghost angels. I don't know.
Ghosts. They were ghosts.
Okay. His mood, Carl Winslow's mood when he goes to the Disney parks, because he's such a stressed out guy, and he gets there and he embraces the magic. I feel that, especially now as a working adult. And when you can go there and you can soak it in. So I really liked that. And then I also like Eddie and Waldo getting lost. He's like, we're on our way to, what is it, Canada. And, as an adult, I still laughed. You still think Waldo, Geraldo, Faldo is funny, right? That's his full name.
Not nearly as funny as I used to.
The character's name is Waldo,
some
Geraldo,
things,
Faldo.
there are, I hope, all I found out with watching this episode is there are some things that are better left in the past.
I guess so. Well, shall we go to the fourth slot is Step by Step, Day by Day. Step by Step, come on, the theme song, did they have to go that hard in the Step by Step theme song?
No, probably not, but I wrote,
make it
okay,
better.
I'm actually going to make an adjustment. I wrote this down as a C, and I'm downgrading it to a D.
Why are you downgrading? You're going from a C. Why?
I cannot stand that kid that they brought in to replace Cody.
Flash.
And everything about his story and his personality and the way he's written and the actor and him in general is, I hate it.
Well, let's get into the episode before we start, your little rants. And I think it's rude. You can't change your grade last minute. It sticks. Midterm or grades were submitted for finals this weekend, so you have to keep it at a C.
C minus.
I'll allow it. This episode is also has a creative title called "We're Going to Disney World," and it is a two-parter that aired.
It's like the writers just took the week off.
It aired on May 3rd, 1996, and May 10th, 1996. So the second episode, that May 10th, 1996, that was probably a really great night of TGIF for me, since I got to see Boy Meets World at Disney on May 10th, 1996, and I got to have Step by Step on May 10th, 1996. I like to think I was sitting at home on my parents' couch downstairs with a nice bowl of cookies and cream ice cream. I like to do that. Was always my TGIF tradition. I live for TGIF. It was so fun.
I don't know where I was in that time, 1996. I'm not going to depress everybody.
Probably watching Star Trek. There, I got it in for you.
I could have been watching Star Trek, actually. What would have... Yeah, it's very possible.
Somehow I was able to shoehorn that in. I can't talk today.
Hey, I'd watch a Star Trek episode filmed at Disneyland or Disney World.
Well, let's go over the episode descriptions
Beam me in.
For Step by Step. Frank's mother comes to town and offers to take the whole family to Disney World for a week. JT tries to impress some girls by spending big, and he also calls himself JT Disney. Mark tries to organize a Disney World record. The girls decide to enter a talent contest. Part 2 is the talent quest goes to Karen's head, and she dispenses with Dana and Al. JT and Rich fall out over JT's big spending, with Mark's assistance, Flash, continues to chase the park record. So this Flash character was only in a few episodes of Step by Step. The actor who had played Cody, who we all loved, we loved the character of Cody, was hysterical. I remember there was something with him and his wife. Some stuff went down, so they had to write him off the show, and they were trying desperately to get like a Cody replacement. So they tried to put this guy in who kind of looked like a knockoff Nathan Fillion.
He did. He was like Walmart Nathan Fillion.
Not as cute. I mean, I'd say like Dollar General Nathan Fillion.
Dollar Tree Nathan Fillion.
And one of the, there were so many, plots to the Step by Step episode. It was all over the place. So he and Mark are trying, I guess we had to have, this is our patriotic episode. So we had to break some Russians record.
The Cold War was over in 1996.
I don't know. Maybe this is for the conservatives that thought Step by Step was too racy because they were
so they had
Frank
to have
and
him
Carol
running
were
around with the American flag trying to get the thing back. I
guess so. I don't know. But it was to ride as many rides, shop at as many places, go to as many food stands. All of them in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And one, besides that character being annoying, I take issue with he shows up and he actually gets delayed in his quest because they let him be part of the Indiana Jones show. They would never do that. He's not a stunt person. So that goes...
This is the first of several different episodes that just are all over the Indiana Jones stunt spectacular.
And
all over it.
There's only 2 of them that were all over it.
But they were really all over it.
But one of the...
It had their actor in it.
One of these safety keys at Disney, or what they have these keys for cast members at Disney, and safety is one of the big ones. And I was oh, they would never let him do that. So that was ridiculous. And then I thought, if you're going to break the record, like I bet the Russian didn't have assistance from people within the parks. They were basically letting him like skip lines and like just handing him the food. I barely saw him pay for anything.
They have a safety thing at Disney, but they let those people rent those strollers around and drive them around. They got razor blades on the end of them, and they let them cut people's ankles
one
open.
time Daniel almost had to get stitches at Disney because this woman wasn't looking where she was going and just rammed right into your ankle. Which thankfully we always bring Band-Aids to the parks with me.
There wasn't even a kid in it. It was just a bunch of her merch was sitting in the seat.
Her kid wasn't even in it.
No.
I know she didn't say sorry.
No, she just gave me a nasty look as I was limping off to the side to put a Band-Aid on.
When strollers kill.
To get my tourniquet ready.
A Disney nightmare. So we have all that, and I just feel like if you're going to try to do the record, like actually do it. I bet the Russian guy probably had to work hard. Not that obviously I'm always Team USA, but that guy was dumb. And then back in the day, before it was Disney Springs, Downtown Disney had like the club side called Pleasure Island, and one of the clubs was like a country music themed line dancing, because it wasn't like line dancing like really big in the mid 90s.
Give me like 4-H camp flashbacks here.
And so Karen enters the singing contest, so that's called Disney How Can We Plug These Clubs.
It was
you want to go
a
explain
big
what
mess.
Frank's storyline was?
Yeah, Frank.
And Carol, the parents.
Frank just wanted to get some, man.
He just wanted to hook
He
up
wanted
with
to
his
have
wife.
some alone time with his wife.
Wasn't it their anniversary?
Yeah, it was their anniversary.
They stayed at Old Key West
He
Lodge
just wanted
too,
to
which
have
is
some
the
alone time
DVC resort.
with his wife the way a man and a woman do.
And ultimately, at the end, Frank's mom lets them go to her room. So that's why you gave it the C.
It doesn't seem
Because
like a
you
win,
said-
actually, now that I think about it.
You said if Frank actually gets some, I'm going to give it a better grade.
Here, son, have my room so you can go do your wife. That's just, you know what? It's not a win. That's not a
Frank's
win.
mom, who played the Grandma Lambert, she was in Lassie, and then she also played Donna Martin's grandma on an episode of 90210, and she's in The Greats, not Hallmark, formerly of ABC Family, Christmas movie that also stars Melissa Joan Hart, who was Sabrina the Teenage Witch, called Holiday in Handcuffs. And she's like basically plays like the same type of character as Frank's mom, like kind of feisty older lady.
Yeah.
Because she was hooking up with some rando
He didn't even speak English.
in that episode. Because they were going to use body language. So probably because Step by Step always had like the little sexy innuendos. Maybe that's why they were like, okay, we're going to work in this American flag thing to try to like appease our viewers. But yeah, the whole record, if you're going to go for the record, show me, because I know if I'm going to Disney, if they just let you skip all the lines and you just run by and someone hands you your popcorn or your food, that would be able to be easily accomplished.
I don't think that record exists.
I don't think it's a real thing.
But I agree. You shouldn't be allowed to skip the line if you're going for the record.
And I'm going to say, too, of all of the TGIF shows, my favorite one to rewatch is Step by Step because it does have more grown-up humor. But this episode, that it's the fourth slot for me, and I gave it a B because I still find it funny.
I gave it a C-. D.
Nick Swisher's wife is in it. She plays one of the girls that JT's trying to woo. I went to high school with Nick Swisher. Flex.
I hate that storyline about them. JT Disney. That's
JT
so
Disney.
dumb.
But they show that they don't believe him. They're just using him to get,
That is the
money.
most realistic thing about the episode. That they would not believe him, and they just used him to pay for stuff.
Shall we move on to the third slot?
Why not?
The third slot goes to the show that I've been rewatching consistently, Modern Family. And this episode, another creative title, is entitled Disneyland. And it aired on May 9th, 2012, which I was like, 2012 wasn't that long ago. Apparently, it was. It was like 11 years ago. Can you believe that? That 2012 was 11 years ago?
Yes, I can, because that's how math works.
You. If looks could kill, ladies and gentlemen. But this is the only episode that I know of these Disney-themed episodes that took place at Disneyland, not Walt Disney World. Most tend to film at Walt Disney World. But since Modern Family is set in LA, that part of California, I think it makes sense. And I like it that there's one that's at Disneyland.
Yeah, I mean, well, technically the middle was supposed to be in Disneyland, but we'll get to that in a minute.
We'll get to that in a minute. So the episode description for this one is as follows. visiting the happiest place on earth triggers old memories and creates new ones. Like I said, I don't know if fans are writing this on IMDb, but that is the description. We've got Lily, Cam and Mitchell's daughter, on a leash because she keeps wanting to run off. All kids do that. We have Manny, who's more concerned with a school project about the stock market because Manny's always acted like an old man, drinking like espresso when he's like 7. Luke and Phil are wanting to do all the rides. Phil thinks that because he's older now, he's getting sick on it, but it turns out he has the flu later. And then Claire, I don't even know what's Claire's storyline.
Claire was invited that one boy
for Haley.
But
then we end up finding Dylan is a Dapper Dan.
Yes.
And they're all, and Haley's like, oh my gosh, what a dork. And I'm like, I would love to date a Dapper Dan. The Dapper Dans are awesome.
I like this episode. I thought that
Gloria's in her bad shoes, her heels.
Jay's monologue throughout it is what makes it a good episode and pulls it together, because he's remembering when he took his kids there when they were younger.
Yeah. And
he was thinking about leaving his wife, and finally he made the decision not to and to stick it out until they were grown for the kids. And then he pulls it together by saying, if I hadn't have done that, I probably wouldn't have ended up meeting Gloria and be where I'm at now. And so it was a family, or Modern Family has a really good way of usually tying
everything at the end.
Things in, and not just being funny. I mean, it is a very funny show, but also having a little bit of
poignant.
Yeah, heart and poignancy.
Because Claire and Mitchell were kind of making fun of them. They're like, yeah, last time we came to Disneyland, like Dad cried on like the Lincoln attraction, which I think is their kind of version of the Hall of Presidents on the West Coast, which we've never done that. We've only been to Disneyland twice, and we have not done that attraction yet. But it turns out why he's crying is because that's when he like kind of realized like
I gotta stick it out.
Yeah, for these kids. I like Gloria, like I said, in her uncomfortable shoes. So Jay finally gets her some mini slippers that she's walking around in the parks with. That's a nice bit. And then Lily, who keeps taking off, Jay's like, wait a minute, I can fix this, and gets Lily little heels.
Yep.
So that was a good payoff. And then this episode is a little interesting because, so obviously Dylan, Haley's on and off again boyfriend, is a Dapper Dan, and then he shows up as like another character, Little John.
Yep, in the bear suit. Although
and typically
we never
Disney
see
is
his
really
face in it. So
yeah. And like you pointed out, with all the dubbing and everything, like they could have just been filming around those characters, so the magic wasn't broken for the children that would have been watching these scenes. But
Heaven
I'm
forbid.
surprised that they let him still do that on TV, because character integrity is so big at Disney. Like if you are. They don't say like, hey, I play Belle at Walt Disney World. You say like, I'm friends with Belle. So if you're a cast member and you have an Instagram account and you post a picture of yourself in that outfit, you have to say like, hung out with my friend Belle today.
I've only ever seen one break once. One time I have seen a character break character.
When was this?
When we ran the 10-miler.
Oh, and Josh.
And we saw Cruella DeVille.
Yes.
And the person that we were with walked up to her and says, so what do you think about that Mike Vick guy?
Oh, man.
And that broke the character. But other than that, in all the years we've been, I've never seen...
Didn't you say Merida almost broke character when Sarah Beth and I, like...
ran at her like two small children, even though you're two mid-30s women?
Hey, I was still in my 20s then. Watch it.
Okay.
We were in our 20s then, late 20s, and that was Merida's first meet and greet. And Sarah Beth and I were so excited when it was our turn. I don't know where Kaylin was. But
she was standing there with me watching this whole
we like
thing
ran
unfold.
up to her, like hugged her, and then we wanted to get those bears, and we are like, can we get in line again? And Kaylin's like, no, I'll buy you the bears. So we ended up taking our bear picture like the next year. It was like a year in the making. And didn't you say she almost broke character because she was surprised?
She turned around and like saw two adults and thought, and I just saw this, and the look in her eyes was, okay, I get a break from the kids. And then you guys just both ran and like bear hugged her at the same time. And when you hugged her, you just saw it in her eyes. She was
thinking that she wasn't going to have kids hanging all over her. And then we were like,
and then she had adults hanging all over her. Yeah.
But I thought the Modern Family episode was great. It got, even though it is in my third slot, it got an A for me. I love Modern Family. It was good. I like it that we have one that takes place at Disneyland. Like I said, it was just a good episode. It wasn't extreme Disneyland focused. Like they showed all the rides, but it wasn't like a pure commercial like some of these were. It was they found an organic way to work it in.
I gave it a B.
And that's pretty good for you. It was better. Was it better than fine?
It was good.
Okay. So coming in the Second slot for me is the middle. And now this wasn't necessarily a two-parter if you just wanted to watch the second part, but I feel like to get in the vibe, you need to watch part one. So the episodes are entitled Orlando and The Wonderful World of Hex. And it aired on May 21st, 2014. But even though it was like broken up in two parts, both episodes aired that evening. My mom was actually in Disney, I think in February or March when they were filming this one, because I remember this was before I even watched The Middle. She was like, "Hey, Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond is filming a show called The Middle in Disney World while I'm here." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool," because that's my first episode I ever watched of The Middle. Because I had watched that episode and I watched the Blackish episode, and then I thought The Middle was just hysterical, and then I ended up getting into The Middle, and now we've seen every episode a bunch.
She did not do that in anticipation of a podcast episode either. She just did it out of her own volition.
My own volition for what?
To go watch those Disney episodes.
Why wouldn't I?
Ask myself that every day.
It had been a long time since Disney had done the whole I'm gonna film our ABC produced shows in the parks.
Why
So
wouldn't I
of course
just
wanted
turn on
to.
Star Trek in the background while I work?
I guess. I mean, just throw it on. But that got us into The Middle.
Yeah.
Because you like The Middle too. The Middle's
I
a
do
great
like The
show.
Middle. It's a good show.
Highly underrated comedy. But it was classic. If you've ever watched The Middle, please watch The Middle. The Hex are so relatable and real to me. I don't know. I just love The Middle.
Maybe we're giving something away about ourselves that they're so
I guess
relatable to
so.
us. I don't know.
The episode's descriptions for Orlando, the first one is the Hex have an eventful road trip to Walt Disney World. If anyone has ever ridden a car with their family members, I remember taking a few Myrtle Beach trips where we did not have a van. I had to sit in the very middle of a backseat of a very tiny car with a brother who got car sick. I think he ended up throwing up on the side of the road, and we had to clean it up with our old beach towels, but that's neither here nor there. So the Hex have an eventful road trip to Walt Disney World when Axel, that's the son, wins a bet with his parents. Sue demands to take a driving shift. And why would you want to take a driving shift? Passenger princess for life. And Brick asks to take a detour to North Carolina to visit his online girlfriend. And the second part description is the Hex arrive at Walt Disney World in Orlando only to discover that their reservations and tickets are for Disneyland in California. And their vacation only goes downhill from there. So what'd you think of this one?
I gave it a B.
You gave it a B? I thought you would at least given this one an A. Because you like The Middle. Why a B?
Why a B?
Because you're a harsh critic.
I'm a harsh critic. I think that I got annoyed every time Sue had to go to the hospital place.
To the first aid
Maybe
place.
it was because it was an effective episode of television that I was frustrated every time.
You were like Axel getting frustrated with Sue.
About to do what they wanted to do, and then Sue has to go to first aid.
Like every time they're about to get on a ride, Sue would either pass out or, but it wasn't her fault the whole time. Brick kept losing his hat.
Correct.
What are these things? They're called Mickey ears. And then Brick took forever to pick out his font.
And I agree with Mike. I just wanted to go to Epcot.
Which they finally get to do on the second day. Because he's like, I want to, you know why? I don't want to just go get a beer at Epcot. He's like, I've never been able to afford to take your mom to France, so I want to go take her to Paris. So they storm off, and then the kids end up, finally having fun together.
It's when they stop actually trying to have fun.
Yeah. It always makes me laugh because that first, when they first finally arrive to the parks after their road trip, the North Carolina segment.
Yeah, that was a whole thing, man.
For Brick's online girlfriend. I feel like this game is supposed to be like World of Warcraft that he's playing, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. You used to play that. You were cool. I played it one time. Stop giving me that look.
I'm 10 years clean at this point.
They are in Disney World that first day they get there. They ended up letting him in because I feel like this is realistic to Disney. Because Sue won the trip. And I feel like if somebody did screw up like that, Disney guest relations does want to make people happy.
Sure.
And since it was an honest mistake and they made it right with their hotel and they let him in the park, great. But they finally get in. Axel takes over. He's like, I'm the captain now. So they finally get in line for a ride. And it's been this is true. This happens at Disney all the time. Oftentimes, you're going to have lines at Disney. It's part of it. Part of the experience. You got to roll with it. But there's oftentimes a line to get out of the park. Specifically Magic Kingdom, where they were. And Axel finally gets them into a line, and it turns out they were just getting out of the park. Then they go to their hotel, and obviously they freak out. I
Because it's a
actually made
nice hotel.
I actually made a reference to the middle with this refrigerator's one that looks like a cabinet.
Oh, yeah.
And they end up sleeping in till like 3 o'clock the next day, probably because they drove all night, didn't really sleep.
Yeah.
Sue scratched up the car during her driving shift. So they were probably all tired. And like Mike says, no wonder, rich people are so happy. They're so well rested. Is that what he says?
Yes, that's correct.
But then they finally get to the parks. Mike and Frankie go off, have a nice time at Epcot. The kids finally get it together. They go on some rides. My one thing is the editing of this episode.
Yeah, they do a bad job with like
making
the
it jump back
travel.
and forth. All they had to do was include the scene of the kids on test track after they showed them on, because they showed like them on the Magic Kingdom rides, and then they did like test track and then another Magic Kingdom ride.
They edited
like,
it
put it
out
later
of
in the
order, and they
montage.
could have fixed it just like that. But we
Because the
don't
kids
give any
end-
breaks on this podcast for for
Yes.
poor editing. You should edit your stuff to be geographically correct.
But then it ends up coming together at the end, and they watch the fireworks, which are now, those illuminations is no longer a thing at Epcot. But thankfully, I never really watched Harmonious, but those awful barges are gone now, right? Did I tell you that?
Yes, Thanos' ring is out of the
Yes.
middle of the lagoon.
But I really liked this episode of The Middle because when you're a kid and you take those family trips, especially when you're in that car,
Yeah.
getting there can be such an adventure. And it just talks about like the getting there and all of it. And I gave the episode of The Middle, I gave it an A just because I love this one. It's one of my favorite ones.
And you're an easy grader.
Are you saying that I'm an easy teacher?
Grader.
Grader. One time I judged a pageant, like a local beauty pageant, not beauty pageant, but just a pageant. And I was like, oh, these girls tried so hard. And I looked at my score sheets compared to my fellow judges. Oh my gosh, people were being brutal to these girls up there. I'm like, they're on stage, they're doing all these things, they're putting themselves out there. And like, my scores were so much higher than everybody else's. I didn't get asked to judge again at a pageant. I got asked to tabulate a pageant once. I was like, oh, y'all don't think I'm a good judger?
No, because you're not tough enough.
I guess not. Coming in the number one slot.
Her
The
rankings,
Blueprint.
not mine.
Hey, you agreed with me. You said personally, I think you liked Modern Family in the Middle, probably because they were more modern, haha. But you begrudgingly agreed with me that this was the best TGIF one. It set the bar. It was the first one. And this is Full House. Whatever happened to predictability? Another banger theme song from the 90s. And this episode was entitled The House Meets Mouse. And it was a two-parter that aired on May 11th, 1993 and May 18th, 1993.
That was 30 years ago.
You're making me sick. The descriptions are: the family takes a trip to Disney World where they each encounter their own forms of disaster. Danny cannot propose to Vicky without being interrupted. Jesse and Joey do a radio broadcast live from the bottom of a shark tank. Michelle gets to be princess for a day and delights in torturing DJ, Stephanie, and Kimmy. The part 2 description is: at Disney World, the family searches the entire park for Michelle. Surprise, surprise. Danny proposes to Vicky. Wow, they just give it away right there. And after quarreling, Jesse and Rebecca reunite. So what'd you give this episode? What was your grade? I know you had to admit it. It is the best Disney one of the TGIF era.
I gave it a C, and it's not like it's a high bar.
You couldn't even muster up a B because
No.
it was the literal. You're just a hater.
I guess
Admit it. Say you're a hater.
I guess I'm a hater.
Uncle Jesse was one of my first loves.
I did
as well.
appreciate that they explained how this trip was financed.
Yes.
Because on some of these episodes,
I mean, they explained it on Family Matters.
Boy Meets World is bad.
Boy Meets World is like the only one that doesn't explain how it's financed.
Sabrina was magic.
But Boy Meets World is the only one that's not explained. Your notes are incorrect.
Well, I did appreciate that they explained it, though.
They explain how Kimmy got to go.
Yeah, yes.
Kimmy's like, my parents will pay for any trip that they don't have to take me on.
That detail specifically was appreciated. But Michelle, the annoyingness of Michelle's character cannot be overstated.
It should have been Stephanie, Princess for the Day. She was next in line.
Yeah, I mean, she is a very annoying character.
Because the Olsen twins didn't come back to do Fuller House, one of my dreams for Fuller House, that was the sequel, I guess, to Full House that was on Netflix a few years ago was that they would do another Disney episode and that Stephanie would be about to become Princess for the Day, finally, for redemption. And then suddenly one of the Olsen twins would show up playing Michelle and cut her off in line again and be like, snooze, you lose. I thought that would have been a great way to bring back the Olsen twins, but I never got that.
I'm sorry. I'm sad for you.
Do you like it how when we were watching that, I not only the things I point out, how I would point out which one was Mary Kate and which one was Ashley in each scene? You know, not a lot of
It's
people
like
know that.
when we're actually at the Disney parks and you're trying to explain to me which one is Chip and which one is Dale.
How do you... Okay, which one is Chip and which one is Dale? You know
I don't
this.
know.
Dale is the one with the red nose. Chip is the one with the brown nose, so think of it like a chocolate chip. Or
That
like a black
information
nose.
just passed right through my brain and out the wall behind and out of the
You
house.
know
behind me.
this. Guys,
No,
he's just
I
being
don't know this.
silly.
Aunt Becky is really mean to
I was
Jesse.
going to say it's really hot.
Is really mean to Jesse because for doing his job and is the whole reason that they are there.
And she claims it's their anniversary, but this is where, okay, so the middle Modern Family all have consistencies.
Oh my gosh. She's getting into Full House lore now.
Yes. Jesse and Becky get married on Valentine's Day, which is on February 14th, generally speaking. This episode, we're to believe that this episode is taking place in the summer. And I'm like, did you change your anniversary? Maybe that's why he doesn't care, Becky. But anyway, yes, this is a thing that annoys me in Christmas movies that I watch where they all act like the dad and aunt or the mom that's, you know, off to work their job is just being a Scrooge. And I'm like, literally, they have to, like, I don't even have Christmas Eve off. I have to take vacation time to get Christmas Eve off. That's the way most jobs work. And they act like they're just being like some terrible Scrooge. But like, the reason why they're down there is Jesse's band, Jesse and the Rippers, are getting not just to play at like a tiny little concert. They're like headlining on the Magic Kingdom stage. So he has rehearsals. Then Joey ends up, because he and Jesse have their radio show, the Rush Hour Renegades. And so he has to go work on that. Now that's something that Joey kind of threw in at the last minute.
In the submersible pool.
I think that's like a thing they do at Disney. And that's a part you said that wasn't dubbed because they had the actual microphones.
Well, yeah, they were wearing microphones.
And that's where I learned why when I see people with microphones on, I hear the puh, pizza, cardboard box.
Yep.
And so
Plosives.
I'm just going to jump right in. So that part of the episode when they're in at Epcot and they're filming in the water, Danny is trying to propose to Vicky at the restaurant, the Coral Reef restaurant. And I told you this when I booked it. So we ate there. That was
I was warned, yes, folks.
Our fancy meal.
I want to make it very clear. All the red flags were there, and I chose to ignore them.
You love me. We went to Disney World for our honeymoon, and back then we didn't really do like a lot of sit down restaurants because it was much money. But we wanted to do one nice.
We were poor.
I mean, like, yeah, but. So anyway, we wanted to do one fancy meal, and I'm like, it's always been a dream of mine to eat where they ate on Full House. So that's why we ate at Coral Reef. We haven't been to Coral Reef since either.
I mean, it's not like...
It was good. It was okay.
Right. It's fine.
It was fine. Yeah, it was fine. We got a free dessert because it was our honeymoon. Because I do remember that dessert had that liqueur sauce on it. And I felt like I took like a shot when I tasted just the sauce part. But yeah, that's why I wanted to eat there. And they stay at the Grand Floridian. And every time I walk in the Grand Floridian lobby, I think of when Jesse and Becky made up. It's more iconic than the Corey Topanga kiss. We have Jesse, which, yes, I know he was dubbed. We have him playing the piano in that beautiful lobby. And he's not singing Forever, which was his number one. I think it was the number one single that he had with Jesse and the Rippers. Why isn't that song on Spotify for me to listen to? Please make that happen.
It's a fictional band.
Okay, the song Forever, it was actually done by the Beach Boys first. Not a lot of people know that. But anyway, somebody please get this song on Spotify. But he sings to Becky in the lobby, and every time I'm in the Grand Floridian, I think of that. But all the little side stories came together. And you know what I really liked about this episode, too? All the Aladdin stuff, because Aladdin was my favorite Disney movie. Still to this day is my favorite Disney movie. Because I'm just slightly older than the Olsen twins.
I did like how they worked Steve into that outfit since he was the voice of Aladdin. That was
the
nice.
actor who played Steve. Now, not the singing voice of Aladdin, but just the talking voice of Aladdin. Scott Weiner, I think is his name. and he was as a kid when I would watch Full House, like I knew that, but like I never like I could always like separate it. Now every time I hear Steve when I watch old episodes of Full House, which I still do because I'm super cool, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so obviously Aladdin. And I like because DJ, her little storyline is she misses Steve so much because like stupid high school kids are, and she's hallucinating him everywhere. Did you say they are stupid?
Yeah.
Sorry to all our high school listeners, if any of you exist.
No, they're not out there.
But she's like hallucinating him. So they actually had him in the Aladdin costume at one point. That was cute. And then, unlike the step-by-step episode where they actually had the character in the Indiana Jones show, she hallucinates that the stunt guy that's playing Indiana Jones is him, but they still dressed him up and had him in that show. That was like a really big show when that first came out. My dad loved that show. We'd have to go all the time. The only time I went and I actually even understood like anything about Indiana Jones was like after I had already met you because I watched the movies.
Because
I was like, oh, now I finally get it.
You mean because you met me and I had to correct all of the wrongs of your filmological history?
You were like, Han Solo's in it. Come on, watch it.
Indiana Jones. I mean, I met this woman. She hadn't seen Star Wars, folks. She hadn't seen Indiana Jones.
But guess what I had seen, though?
She had seen Star Trek.
I had seen Star Trek.
And that's why it was a match made in heaven.
I guess so. Steve does finally show up at the Grand Floridian, and Kimmy is like, oh, now I'm hallucinating too. And then, like, Stephanie's storyline is that she's really upset because Michelle took her place in line. I mean, who wouldn't be? Like, Michelle at first just wanted to ride the carousel over and over again. I'm like, why do you want to do that? That's usually a walk-on. But then once Stephanie goes off and pouts...
kids are idiots.
Yeah,
kids just
stupid.
like dumb crap.
But as soon as Stephanie goes off and pouts, then Michelle's, like, picking all the good stuff. I think that's after they find her because she goes missing. She storms off. You know, she's being a total brat.
As always.
She's not... Well, you got it, dude.
As always.
How rude.
As always.
But I totally have been a Stephanie before in this situation where I'll like, what's the phrase? Cut your nose off to spite your face.
Yes.
And like, I'll just ruin it for like ruin my own good time. And like Joey points that out. And speaking of Joey's storyline, he always loved cartoons. So even his storyline was relevant when he went over to the animation studio to take a tour and they had that little cartoon segment. Even though it might have seemed stupid to you as a viewer, still relevant for his character for the storyline because he was always like the cartoon guy. I mean,
But why was he wearing a blazer over a polo shirt with shorts and boots with white socks?
I don't know. Was that trendy in the 90s?
I don't think so.
Like all the other people's outfits in the show looked very 90s-y. That I'm like, what are you wearing?
I don't think so.
And then of course at the end, the chef's kiss moment is when Jesse's performing with the Rippers on stage and they're singing "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes." It still makes me tear up to this day. And then, of course, as you pointed out to me, when Danny does finally propose to Vicky, the "Will you marry me, Vicky?" or something is in the sky. Clearly, like, I don't even know, would that even be CGI'd at the time?
No, I don't know how they did it. Like, I don't know what the effect was, but yeah, she turns to me and she's like, "There's fireworks."
I'm like, I've never seen fireworks look like that before.
Fireworks go off in the sky, and they say, "Will you marry me, Vicky?" And Hope turns to me and says, "How'd they do that?"
You just laughed at me. So, but
That's
Full
the
House.
only thing I can do.
Full House was the blueprint. I like seeing old Toontown, which still exists in Disneyland, but it's gone.
There was one she pointed out to me.
You said you miss seeing Toontown too.
I did not say that.
We noticed that some of the looks of some of the Disney characters, Donald looked a lot different in the early 90s.
His eyes are different.
And then Goofy had lash extensions done in the 90s because he had some lashes going on. But I thought it was good. I mean, like you begrudgingly had to admit it because you were like, let's start off with Step by Step because that's the most tolerable show to me.
It was
of the one.
It was more watchable than all the other TGIF
Even though Full
shows.
House isn't your favorite of those shows. I mean, it probably would be my favorite TGIF show.
It was the more watchable.
It was the first one. It was the blueprint. It set the standard. That beautiful moment at the end when they're watching the fireworks and Jesse's singing. It's just pure Disney.
And Danny's engaged to the woman that he ultimately won't marry.
Okay, that is stupid, and a lot of Full House fans. They brought her back on Fuller House. You know that, right?
I didn't watch Fuller House.
Well, you missed out. You know that DJ and Steve ultimately ended up together.
Good for them.
One of my fave couples. But it was I liked it. It's a good episode.
Okay.
So that is our Disney list. I gave the Full House episode, shocker of shocker, an A. So my final grade tallies were no Fs. Sabrina got a D.
What are you laughing about?
Nothing. Boy Meets World got a C. Stop making me laugh. Family Matters got a C. Step by Step got a B. Modern Family got an A. The Middle got an A. And Full House got an A. So give me your grades one more time.
Oh, gosh. Hold on. Let me get my thing up. I deleted it.
You already deleted your notes?
Yeah, I deleted the notes. Modern Family got a B. The Middle got a B. Step by Step got a C.
Full House you gave.
Full House got a C.
You gave Full House and Step by Step the same grade.
I
when
wanted
the Full
to
House
downgrade.
episode was
You
superior.
wouldn't let me downgrade.
Fine, go ahead.
Step by Step got a D. Family Matters got an F. And whatever the other one was that I don't even care to remember
Sabrina?
also got a D. Yeah.
What about Boy Meets World?
D.
Why couldn't you give out any A's?
I'm a tough grader. You got to earn it.
So you've probably been a teacher that wouldn't even give an extra credit.
No, do the assignment.
And you're a student that didn't do the assignments.
Absolutely, and I deserved every grade that I got.
I'm a student that did the assignments and wanted the extra credit because I not only wanted my A, I wanted to be the best. But that's a conversation for my therapist.
It is indeed.
So anyway, that is our Disney episode. This is an episode that I have been wanting to do since the inception of this podcast. I love me some theming. But yeah, go back and watch these episodes. You won't regret it, I promise. If anything, just watch their mouths, because then you can be like me and we'll call it the Disney dub.
It's fitting that this is an episode you were looking forward to recording, because this is our 20th episode.
Really?
And so we appreciate everybody who's been out there listening to us for 20 episodes.
I thought you were say 20 years. I was like, what?
20 episodes.
20 episodes.
20
wow.
weeks. 20 weeks in a row that we've actually managed to pull this thing together.
And we do appreciate all the support, for sure.
And so just remind everybody, we've got a new Instagram account, We Watch TV Podcast. We try to post fun stuff on there from time to time, and it's just a good place to keep up to date with where our episodes are. Of course, as always, if you listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, it's easy to just hit that subscribe button, and you'll be notified when new episodes are posted. And other than that...
maybe someday you'll get a Star Trek Disney episode.
Oh, God. I wish. Is a dream?
I even know how I would do it. I have Q involved.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be a Q episode, for sure.
They'd get stuck on just a small world. They wouldn't be able to get off the ride.
God, you're brutal.
They'd have to figure out a way to get off of that.
Oh, you're brutal.
And then they'd
go
hang out with the country bears. I love the country bears.
Only a small group of them has to be stuck on that, because you couldn't do the whole episode like that. It'd drive the fans crazy, too.
I think that we would need to make sure that Picard and Riker were stuck on Small World.
I could see that.
I think Data would like
Worf.
it.
Put Worf on it.
Yeah, Worf and Riker.
Yeah.
I'd send Picard to Country Bears with his Earl Grey.
He'd end up on stage singing with them.
He probably would. On that note, thanks for listening, everyone.
For everybody who tuned in just to hear our thoughts on the Ted Lasso season finale, again, it will be next week.
Yes.
Apologies. We do occasionally like to go on vacation. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of We Watch TV, a podcast about the TV shows we watch. You can find more from Hope on Twitter @LilRunner or on Instagram @LilRunner1485. And Daniel is on Twitter @TheRealHoboDan. Drop us a line if you like the show or have a question you'd like us to address on a future show. Music for today's podcast was provided by Your Tunes from Pixabay. Artwork was created using the AI program Midjourney with prompts written by Daniel.